These elite forces are forged in fire, ice, and blood, enduring unimaginable pain and pushing their bodies and minds to the brink of madness. Once deployed, these murderous shadows execute the missions that inspire movies. These are not just soldiers. They are the living nightmares of their enemies.
Don't shoot! Let him burn!
Number 8. SAS, UK. When talking about tough British operatives, James Bond might be the first name that comes to mind. However, this fictional spy is linked to MI6, while the real leaders in terms of physical strength are the SAS. The SAS, Special Air Service, is the top unit of the British Special Forces. They handle many types of missions, from counter-terrorism and direct action to inspection and hostage rescue. The SAS has 4 regiments, each with several operational squadrons. Though the exact number of members is a closely guarded secret, it's estimated to be between 400 and 500. To be part of this top-level military group, you need more than just ordinary skills. Only those who complete the tough SAS training can be considered.
It was a very secret organization, and it was tasked with fighting the most sensitive types of mission.
The training is so intense that it's said even demigods might struggle to meet the standards. The SAS's main job is to carry out high-impact missions behind enemy lines, aiming to cause the most damage in the shortest time possible while ensuring no losses. This ambitious goal requires trainees to endure incredibly tough physical and mental training. While many elite teams have a hell week to eliminate unsuitable candidates, the SAS uses a grueling 5-month training program. This includes running 6 marathons in just 5 days.
To be able to get through the selection process, one has to be very focused, extremely driven, almost to the point of having superhuman concentration on getting the job done.
To make it even tougher, candidates must carry 55 pounds of bricks in their backpacks during these marathons. And it's not a smooth run on city streets or countryside trails. It's all in the rugged mountains of the western north. The training is so intense that some candidates have died from exhaustion, others have had mental breakdowns and ended up in mental hospitals, and some have even hallucinated from the extreme conditions. If they manage to survive this brutal initial phase, the next challenge is set in the Indian jungles, where they must survive alone for several days.
To get into the Special Air Service, or what we call a regiment, takes a high degree of stamina. Now that's both physical and mental.
About 95% of candidates don't even make it to the official training. The training itself involves common elements like sleep deprivation, resistance to cold, tactical and weapon training, and hand-to-hand combat. To graduate from this extreme ordeal, candidates must pass one final test, a manhunt. They are given only a compass, a rough map, and their clothes, then dropped somewhere in the wilderness. They must reach a specific location within a set time frame while being hunted by the full SAS force. No one has ever managed to complete this task successfully. Trainees always end up getting captured. This final test is a critical part of the training, pushing candidates to their limits. Recruits who join the SAS undergo intense and harsh training to test their ability to resist interrogation. They are subjected to severe human rights abuses, including waterboarding, electric shocks, and other forms of torture. During this period, they are deprived of food for about a week. Only about 1% of those who start this grueling training manage to complete it. Most recruitment efforts fail because the candidates cannot endure the tough conditions. Given this rigorous selection process, it's no surprise that the SAS is capable of taking on much larger enemy forces with impressive success rates. Their operations often see them outnumbering opponents by 20 to 30 times without losing any operatives. The SAS has been involved in many high-profile missions, such as the 1980 Iranian embassy siege in London, the Gulf War in 1991, and the war in Afghanistan. One of their most notable missions was Operation Nimrod in 1980, where they successfully rescued hostages from the Iranian embassy in London. With such a highly trained and skilled unit, the SAS is well equipped to handle challenging and dangerous operations. Number 7. Delta Force, USA. Delta Force was formed on November 19, 1977, by Beckwith and Colonel Thomas Henry. In the meantime, Colonel Bob Black Gloves Matkal from the 5th Special Forces Group set up a temporary unit called Blue Light to fill the gap until Delta Force was ready. The first members of this unit were carefully chosen and underwent a tough selection process in the early 1978. This process included navigating rough, mountainous terrain while carrying heavy loads, designed to test their endurance, stamina, and mental toughness. The initial training ran from April to September 1978, and Delta Force was fully operational by the fall of 1979, just before the Iran hostage crisis. On November 4th, 1979, 52 American diplomats and citizens were taken hostage at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, Iran.
This is a hijack! Let's go!
Delta Force was assigned the task of planning and carrying out Operation Eagle Claw to rescue the hostages during the nights of April 24th and 25th, 1980. However, the mission failed due to helicopter issues.
This is the entire rotor assembly of one of the American helicopters that were involved in the rescue attempt.
A review found 23 problems, including unexpected weather, coordination issues among different military branches, a helicopter collision with a refueling plane, and mechanical failures that reduced the number of helicopters from 8 to 5. After the failed mission, the U.S. government realized changes were needed. This led to the creation of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, Airborne, known as the Night Stalkers, for air support in special operations. The Navy's SEAL Team 6, which later became the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, was formed for maritime counterterrorism. The Joint Special Operations Command was established to oversee these counterterrorism units. Since the 1990s, the Army has advertised for recruitment into the 1st SFOD-D Delta Force, although the Army does not provide an official fact sheet about the unit. Recruitment notices refer to Delta Force as a special operations unit designed for rapid response and specialized missions. To apply, candidates must be in the rank of E4 through E8, have at least 2.5 years left in their enlistment, be at least 22 years old, and have a high score on the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. They must be airborne qualified or volunteer for airborne training. Officer candidates need to be O3 or O4. All candidates must qualify for a secret security clearance and must not have any significant disciplinary actions. In June 2006, General Wayne Downing testified that about 70% of Delta Force members come from the Army Rangers. Selection for Delta Force is held twice a year at Camp Dawson, West Virginia, lasting 4 weeks. The selection process includes physical tests like push-ups, sit-ups, a 2-mile run, and challenging land navigation courses, including a night march with a heavy rucksack. The final test, known as the Long Walk, involves a grueling 40-mile march with a 45-pound rucksack over rough terrain. Candidates sleep as little as 3 to 4 hours per night for weeks, enduring relentless physical and psychological tests designed to break their spirit.
Forward up the hill! Go! Need help? Move it! Let's go!
The mental testing includes psychological exams and an intense interview with Delta instructors and the unit commander. Those who pass then undergo a rigorous 6-month operator training course, OTC, learning counterterrorism and counterintelligence skills, along with advanced weapons training. Contact with family and friends is very limited during this period. Former Delta operator Paul Howe noted the high dropout rate, with only about 5% of applicants completing the selection and training, which includes expert-level skills in demolition, firearms, and navigation. The CIA's Special Activities Center often recruits from Delta Force, and the unit regularly trains with foreign special operations units to refine its tactics and build international relationships. The OTC curriculum includes marksmanship, demolition, breaching, espionage skills, executive protection, and a final exercise to apply all learned skills in realistic scenarios. Delta Force also trains with units like the Australian SAS, the British SAS, and Canada's JTF-2. Number 6. GIGN, France. The GIGN, or National Gendarmerie Intervention Group, is a top-tier tactical unit in France's National Gendarmerie. This elite team handles critical tasks like fighting terrorism, rescuing hostages, monitoring threats, protecting officials, securing important sites like embassies and conflict zones, and tackling organized crime. Founded in 1973 and active since 1974, The GIGN started as a small unit focused on hostage situations. Over time, it has expanded into a robust force with around 1,000 members. About 400 operators are stationed in Sayeret, near Paris, and 600 are spread across 14 regional branches, both in mainland France and overseas territories. The unit shares its role in French security with the National Police's special response teams and trains at its center in Bains. The GIGN gained international fame on December 1994 when it successfully retook Air France Flight 8969 from hijackers in Marseille, killing all 4 terrorists. The GIGN is organized into several key components. The Intervention Force. The core unit with around 100 operators handles major assaults. It is divided into sections, with 2 on alert at all times. Some sections specialize in high-altitude jumps, while others focus on diving. The Observation and Search Force, about 40 operators who focus on reconnaissance and counterterrorism, originally part of the EPIGN. The Security and Protection Force, around 65 operators tasked with protecting high-profile individuals and sensitive sites, also originating from EPIGN. The Regional Branches Force oversees the 14 regional branches. The Gendarmerie Detachment of the GSPR protects the French president and is a joint operation between the Gendarmerie and the National Police. The Engineering and Support Division provides support with specialized skills like sniping, breaching, and engineering. The National Training Center for Specialized Intervention manages the training and retraining of GIGN operators and other selected personnel. The GIGN is skilled in various tactical areas including sniping, breaching, reconnaissance, protection, and parachuting. Helicopter support comes from both Gendarmerie helicopters and the GIH, a joint Army Air Force unit equipped with SA-330 Puma helicopters. The GIGN's 14 regional branches, formerly known as PI2Gs and GPIs, were rebranded and fully integrated into the GIGN in 2021. The 7 branches in mainland France are in cities like Caen and Toulouse, while the 7 overseas branches are in places such as Guadeloupe and French Polynesia. The unit also oversees 20 nuclear protection units. Coordination with the National Police's RAID unit is managed by UCOFI, ensuring joint operations run smoothly. GIGN reports to the Director General of the Gendarmerie Nationale, who answers to the Ministry of the Interior. The unit also participates in the European Atlas network, linking special police units from across the EU. The unit's rigorous selection process includes a week of pre-selection and a demanding 14-month training for new members, with a high dropout rate. The AGIGN branches follow a similar, though shorter, training regimen. GIGN training covers a wide range of skills, including handling and using weapons effectively, practicing shooting and aiming with precision, completing airborne training like high-altitude jumps, paragliding and inserting from helicopters, mastering underwater skills, including swimming 50 meters with hands and feet tied, and endure cross-examination while balancing on a 65-foot high plank, diving and boarding naval vessels, learning hand-to-hand combat techniques, conducting undercover operations and following suspects for investigative purposes, learning how to infiltrate and escape from various situations, disposing of explosives safely, neutralizing dangerous chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, surviving and fighting in different environments like jungles, snowy regions, mountains, and deserts, developing skills in diplomacy and negotiation. GIGN also trains with other top counterterrorism teams from NATO countries, such as the American FBI Hostage Rescue Team, HRT, the British SAS, the Australian Special Protection Service, SPS, the German GSG-9, and the Irish Garda Emergency Response Unit, ERU. Number 5. Frogman Corps, Denmark. The Frogman Corps is a special maritime unit within the Danish Armed Forces, specifically part of the Special Operations Command. On July 1, 2015, this elite force moved from the Royal Danish Navy to the new Special Operations Command. Founded on June 17, 1957, the Frogman Corps was modeled after the UK's Special Boat Service, the US Underwater Demolition Team, and Norway's Marine Jägerkommandoen. Originally, it was part of the Danish Navy's diving school at Flådestation Holmen, Naval Station Holmen in Copenhagen. However, in 1972, it became an independent unit, though it was still operationally linked to the submarine squadron. The Frogman Corps primarily conducts inspection missions, but is also trained for a variety of tasks, including attacking enemy ships, sabotaging fixed installations, performing advanced operations, and countering maritime terrorism. The Frogman Corps does important work on land, tackling tasks like fighting terrorism and crime. They help the police with diving operations that require specialized skills. Local authorities and other organizations also benefit from the Frogmen's expertise, especially when it comes to inspecting underwater structures. Recruits face tough training to build their resistance to freezing water, with some even losing consciousness during underwater exercises.
We were able to take any civilian off the street and transform them into a smartly disciplined, physically fit, basically trained sailor.
The Frogman Corps trains at the torpedo station in Kongsura and goes through a series of intense courses, including a 3-week combat swimmer course, an advanced scuba diving course, a rescue swimmer course, and a survival course. The main Frogman course lasts 9 months. Every year, 500 to 600 applicants begin this rigorous training, but fewer than a dozen manage to complete it. Since the Corps was established in 1957, only 311 individuals have successfully finished the training and become frogmen by 2015. One notable trainee was King Frederik X of Denmark, who passed the selection and continued training to become a frogman. He earned the nickname Pingo when his wetsuit filled with water, making him waddle like a penguin. Only about 10% of candidates make it through the first week, and those who continue to undergo extensive training in bomb disposal and covert operations. In 2015, a documentary produced by DR was released, showcasing the lives of Frogman cadets. The Frogman Corps played a role in operations in Afghanistan, including Task Force K-Bar, and in Iraq. From 2008 to the end of 2014, the Frogman Corps took part in anti-piracy missions as part of Operation Ocean Shield. On February 5, 2010, 10 Frogman Corps members on the HDMS Absalon L-16 carried out a daring rescue in the Gulf of Aden. They used a small inflatable boat to reach the merchant ship Ariella, which was flying the flag of Antigua and Barbuda and had been hijacked by 6 armed Somali pirates. The Frogman team climbed up the side of the ship, rescued the 25 crew members who had locked themselves in a secure room, and searched the ship for the pirates, who had already fled. In November 2021, a unit from the Frogman Corps was deployed to tackle piracy in the Gulf of Guinea aboard the Royal Danish Navy frigate HDMS Esbern Snare, F-342. On November 25, they engaged in a fierce battle with 8 suspected pirates on a fast-moving boat. The fight resulted in 4 pirates being killed, 1 injured, and the remaining 3 captured. Fortunately, none of the Frogman soldiers were harmed. Number 4, Navy SEAL Team 6, USA. DevGRU, which stands for the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, began as SEAL Team 6, a new unit created after the failed Operation Eagle Claw to rescue hostages in Iran in 1980. During the 1979 Iran hostage crisis, Richard Marcinko was one of the 2 Navy representatives on a task force called the TAT, Terrorist Action Team, which aimed to come up with a plan to rescue the American hostages. Following the mission's failure at Desert 1, the Navy decided it needed a dedicated counter-terrorism unit and asked Marcinko to build it. Marcinko became the first commander of this new team. Marcinko led SEAL Team 6 for 3 years, longer than the usual 2-year term for Navy commanders. The team started with 75 operators and had nearly unlimited resources. In 1984, Marcinko and a few members left to create Red Cell, also known as OP-06D, a special unit for testing the security of U.S. military bases. In 1987, SEAL Team 6 was disbanded and replaced by the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DevGRU, which continued its legacy. The reasons for the name change are various, but SEAL Team 6 is often used to refer to DevGRU. In 2010, during a rescue attempt in Afghanistan, a British aid worker named Linda Norgrove died from injuries caused by a SEAL's misplaced grenade. Later, in 2017, Army Special Forces Staff Sergeant Logan Melgar died from injuries sustained during a hazing incident on base in Mali.
A major break tonight for a Navy SEAL convicted in the hazing death of a Green Beret. Army Staff Sergeant Logan Melgar died during an incident in Mali,
leading to criminal charges against 2 DevGru members and 2 Marine Raiders. During SEAL Team 6's early days, Marcinko had just 6 months to form the team. He didn't have enough time to create a thorough selection process like Delta Forces. Instead, recruits were chosen based on their Navy records and interviews. Marcinko preferred candidates who overcame initial training difficulties over those who excelled from the start. Initially, candidates were drawn from the East and West Coast SEAL teams and UDT. While much of SEAL Team 6's training remains classified, some information is public. To apply for DevGru, candidates must be male, at least 21 years old, have completed at least 2 deployments, and be eligible for secret clearance. Applicants come from SEAL teams, SEAL delivery vehicle teams, special boat teams, explosive ordnance disposal teams, and other specialized Navy units. Enlisted candidates need to be E4 to E8, and officers need to be O3 to O4. They undergo rigorous physical and psychological testing, followed by interviews. Those who pass this phase attend an 8-month selection and training course known as Green Team, with a high dropout rate. Recruits face survival training in Alaskan ice-covered waters, with deaths during training not uncommon. Candidates are assessed on physical performance and mental resilience, undergoing advanced training in climbing, combat techniques, driving, diving, and other skills. They also learn lockpicking and various tactical skills. Successful candidates are assigned to one of the Tactical Development and Evaluation Squadrons. Unlike regular SEAL teams, SEAL Team 6 operators can attend other military courses for additional training. Candidates endure Hell Week, a 5-day marathon of training with only 4 hours of sleep, including surf torture where they lay in the crashing waves. DevGru is divided into color-coded squadrons. Red, blue, gold, and silver squadrons handle assault missions. Black Squadron focuses on intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance. Gray Squadron deals with mobility, transportation, and quick reaction forces. The Green Team is responsible for selection and training. Each assault squadron is led by a commander and divided into 3 troops, each commanded by a lieutenant commander with a senior enlisted advisor, usually a Master Chief Petty Officer. Troops are further divided into smaller teams, each led by a Senior Chief Petty Officer or Chief Petty Officer. Each assault squadron has a unique nickname. Number 3. Sayeret Matkal, Israel. In 1957, Major Avraham Arnon, a former yeshiva student and Palmach fighter, proposed creating a new unit for top-secret intelligence-gathering missions in enemy territory. Supported by David Ben-Gurion and Yitzhak Rabin, Arnon envisioned a team composed of Israel's most elite young recruits, selected for their exceptional physical and intellectual skills. Initially part of Amman's Unit 514, Sayeret Matkal became an independent unit a year later, modeled after the British Special Air Service. It began training with Bedouin trackers to better understand their adversaries. Established shortly after Israel's first helicopter squadron, Sayeret Matkal's close collaboration with this squadron allowed it to operate deeper and for longer periods inside Arab territories compared to its predecessor. The unit, which Arnon led as its first commander, focused on strategic intelligence and operational planning, receiving missions directly from the general staff and evaluating new weapons and tactics. In its early years, Sayeret Matkal consisted of Palmach veterans, Intelligence Corps members, former Unit 1-on-1 members, and paratroopers. Notable early members included Isaac Shoshan, Yair Harari, and Eli Gil, among others. The unit's first significant operation took place in Lebanon in May 1962, followed by a mission in Syria later that year. In the early 1960s, Sayeret Matkal conducted intelligence-gathering operations in the Sinai Peninsula, although it did not see action during the Six-Day War due to extensive preparation and planning. However, it was heavily involved in the subsequent War of Attrition. Following the rise of Arab terrorism, Sayeret Matkal pioneered counterterrorism and hostage rescue techniques, starting with Operation Isotope.
Today marks the 50th anniversary of the Munich massacre, the darkest chapter in the Olympic story. Now on this day, 11 members of the Israeli team were killed by Palestinian gunmen.
In 1972, Before the Munich massacre, the unit was sent to Germany to assist with potential hostage rescue operations, although their advice was not acted upon. Their most renowned mission came on July 4, 1976, with Operation Entebbe, which successfully rescued hostages in Uganda, but resulted in the death of Lieutenant Colonel Yonatan Netanyahu, the unit's commander. The unit was kept a secret in its early years, and its existence wasn't officially confirmed until the 1980s. Even now, most of what it does and can do remains classified. Fighters and leaders were chosen through personal connections and referrals. Since the 1970s, the unit has allowed volunteers to join, though it remains highly secretive. It holds a tough selection camp, known as Gibush, twice a year, where recruits endure several days of sleep deprivation and are watched closely by doctors and psychologists. Only those who pass are admitted. This rigorous selection process was later adopted by other IDF special forces. To be considered for the unit, candidates must have a medical profile of 97, a quality score of 52 or higher, and a psychotechnic score of 50 or above. Once accepted, recruits undergo about 2 years of training, focusing on camouflage, urban combat, bomb disposal, fast shooting, survival skills, martial arts, navigation, and other critical skills. They must also complete a demanding 120 to 150 kilometers beret march in the final 4 days to earn their red beret. Training includes 4 months of basic infantry training with the paratroopers, 2 months of advanced infantry training within the unit, 3 weeks of parachuting at the IDF parachuting school, 5 weeks of counterterrorism training at the IDF counterterror warfare school, plus additional unit-specific training. Much of the remaining training involves long-range inspection, with an emphasis on navigation. Unlike most IDF units, Sayeret Matkal conducts solo navigation exercises. At the end of their training, recruits and other special forces candidates endure a 2-week captivity course, where they're subjected to mock kidnappings, interrogations, and harsh conditions. Today, all soldiers complete an officer's course and may serve in other IDF units. Combat soldiers must extend their service by 36 months and often start university studies towards the end of their term. Although Sayeret Matkal has its insignia, its classified nature means soldiers are not allowed to wear it publicly. This lack of visible insignia makes their identity known among those familiar with the unit. Number 2. Alpha Group, Russia. On July 28, 1947, the KGB chairman, Yuri Andropov, created Alpha Group in response to the 1972 Munich massacre. Their motto, "Wherever Alpha Group appears, compromise stops," shows their tough approach. They act quickly and decisively. Alpha Group was likely formed partly because West Germany established its special unit, the GSG-9. By creating this unit within the KGB's first Chief Directorate, later the 7th Directorate, the Soviet Union aimed to strengthen its defense against terrorism. At the time, the KGB had other special units like Zenit and Cascade Omega. Alpha Group also had the important job of protecting Soviet leaders from enemy special forces during crises or wars. Over time, regional Alpha units were set up across the Soviet Union. The 7th Group in Khabarovsk Krai, Russia. The 10th Group in Kiev Oblast, Ukraine, which later became Ukraine's Alpha Group. The 11th Group in Minsk Oblast, Belarus, which later became Belarus's Alpha Group. The 12th Group in Almaty Oblast, Kazakhstan, which later became the Kazakh NSC Aristan unit. The 13th Group in Krasnodar Krai, Russia. The 14th Group in Sverdlovsk Oblast, Russia. In its early years, Alpha Group was involved in sensitive operations that required unique skills. For example, in 1979, they dealt with Yuri Vlasenko, a young Soviet Ukrainian who had taken refuge in the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. He was either killed by gunfire or by his homemade bomb, which also caused minor damage to the building. During the 1980s, Alpha Group handled more domestic issues, including hostage situations. They notably intervened in the 1983 hijacking of Aeroflot Flight 6833 in Tbilisi, where they killed 3 hijackers and captured 3 others, though 5 hostages were killed in the process. They also got involved in ethnic conflicts across the Soviet Union in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Alpha Group was a key player in counterintelligence operations, targeting hostile intelligence activities and capturing spies like CIA agent Adolf Tolkachev in 1985. Two Alpha Group commanders, General Viktor Karpukhin and General Gennady Zaitsev, were honored with the title Hero of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Alpha Group was downgraded. After the USSR fell, Alpha and another unit, Vimpel, were moved to the Main Guard Directorate, GUO, which was based on the KGB's 9th Chief Directorate. In 1993, they were transferred to the Ministry of Internal Affairs, MVD. After the 1995 Budyanovsk hospital hostage crisis, which Alpha Group played a major role in, President Yeltsin dismissed the first director of the Federal Security Service, FSB, Sergei Stepashin. Alpha and Vityaz were then moved back to the FSB. Mikhail Barsukov became the new head of the FSB and created the FSB Anti-Terrorist Center, ATC, led by General Viktor Zorkin. Directorate A, Alpha, was responsible for protecting transportation and buildings, while Directorate V, Vega Vimpel, focused on strategic sites. They were soon joined by a new special purpose center under General Vladimir Pronichev. After their official service, many Alpha veterans moved into legitimate businesses like private security, organized crime, and politics. For example, Kolar Golovatov co-founded the private security firm Alpha B in August 1993. The Alpha Veterans Association, led by Sergei Goncharov, opposed President Yeltsin's party in the 1995 legislative election. Goncharov later became a State Duma deputy. General Karpukhin, who had retired after the 1991 coup attempt, became a security chief for Kazakh President Nursultan Nazarbayev and later worked with private security companies in Moscow. He also ran unsuccessfully for the Duma as a member of the Union of Patriots in 1995. Alpha Group members underwent intense training that included pain tolerance, hunting, self-surgery, marksmanship, and handling explosives. Number 1. JW Grom, Poland. The Grom military unit is a top-notch special forces group in Poland, operating under the Special Troops Command of the Polish Armed Forces. It's known for being the best of the best in the Polish military. Grom is made up of around 250 highly trained operatives along with support staff. To join Grom, candidates must pass several tough tests, including psychological evaluations and a demanding field test called the Truth Test, which challenges both physical and mental endurance to ensure only the strongest candidates make it through. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, Poland had various special forces units, but they were either focused on military tasks like sabotage and disrupting communications or on counter-terrorism. A turning point came in 1982 when Polish emigrants took over the Polish embassy in Bern, calling themselves the Polish Revolutionary Home Army. This event led General Edwin Rozwuberski to suggest creating a secret military unit to handle terrorism and other unusual threats. However, the People's Army of Poland initially rejected this idea. In 1989, Poland played a crucial role in helping Jews move from the Soviet Union to Israel in an operation known as Operation Bridge. Following an attack on Polish diplomats in Beirut, Lieutenant Col Sławomir Petelicki was sent to Lebanon to manage the safety of civilians and Polish diplomatic locations. After returning to Poland, Petelicki proposed establishing a special military unit to handle similar crises. His plan was approved, and on June 13, 1990, Grom was officially formed as JW 2305. Grom soldiers undergo rigorous training in various areas, including anti-terrorism, special operations, frogman skills, sniping, and parachuting. Each member of a four-man team must be capable of taking on any role within the group if needed. Grom soldiers also receive foundational special operations training from the Swedish Navy's Special Command for Tactical Operations in Karlskrona, Sweden. About 75% of Grom personnel are trained as medics or paramedics, and each team has professional doctors for support. Training includes techniques for capturing or eliminating targets. Grom's training is divided into 3 levels: green, blue, and black. Green training focuses on field reconnaissance, covert operations, evacuations, and neutralizing threats, Blue training emphasizes maritime and naval operations, including underwater work, naval sabotage, and reconnaissance. The highest level, Black training, covers advanced skills like hostage rescue, VIP protection, and area security. Known for their stealth operations, JW Grom members are forbidden from drinking alcohol and getting into fights outside their missions, with a focus on extreme discipline and secrecy. Soldiers must hold their breath for up to 2 minutes in freezing water while performing combat tasks, a test that is essentially torture. In terms of organization, Grom's command and support staff are based in Warsaw, with different squadrons handling specific functions. A squadron, ZBA, is the land element located in Warsaw. B Squadron, ZBB, is the maritime element based in Gdansk. C Squadron, ZBC, has a specialty that's not publicly detailed, also located in Warsaw. There is also a logistics and security unit situated in Warsaw. Which of these deadly special force units in the world did you find the most intriguing? Let us know your answer in the comments section.